Alright, this is going to be a quick video on servicing the Bernina cutter. This can be found on 7 series machines, 5 series machines, and 4 series machines. This needs to be serviced very regularly. It does get a lot of lint buildup, and if the lint is mixed with any amount of oil, it makes it much worse. Once you've gotten the 3 screws out and you've removed it from the machine, this is what it's going to look like. You can separate the 2 parts. We'll put that aside for now. We're going to start with this. You got these 4 screws we're going to take off. The big issue with these modules is that they get a lot of lint in them. The lint gets compacted, and once it's compacted, it starts to spread apart the layers, and that can cause your machine to jam and cause damage with inside of this module. Alright, so this last screw I'm taking out is actually for the blade itself. So there's 5 screws in total, 4 for that upper plate, and this one for the blade. Just carefully take out that blade. A lot of times these just need to be replaced. I mean, you can feel if there's any imperfections at all on that blade, you want to swap it out, because it's not going to cut well. Any question whatsoever, swap it out. In fact, you may just want to swap it out every time, because then you get the machine all back together, and then it doesn't cut right. You have to take it all apart again. So, separating all the pieces here. You can even take this little piece out too. This is what you've got. So, what I would do is use a couple different brushes. Sometimes you can get really firm bristle ones to clean out this, but typically if you've got a brush that looks like this, it's nice to have one that has more firm bristles and a little bit softer, and just get all of the impacted lint out, especially in the track area that you don't really see is there. And make sure this is dry and isn't covered in oil at all. So you may want to get a paper towel and clean that out until it's pretty pristine looking. You want this to be super clean. Same with this plate. Just wipe it clean. You can reinstall that. There's a hook on the end, and then it just kind of snaps into place and fits underneath right there in that little notch. That should do it. Okay. Now this one is the one that gets all the damage. As you can see, this here is lint buildup. This one isn't as bad as some I've seen, but there's paper thin like layers of metal here, and the lint gets built up in between, and it spreads those layers out, and then when it goes to activate, those parts get jammed. This little bump right here is the one that gets bent upward usually, and that's what gets caught. If it is bent up at all, sometimes you can repair it just by taking like the butt end of your driver and kind of just pushing it down like that, and it will kind of round it downward, and then it won't get caught. You want to be able to run your finger across it and feel like it's not going to get caught. Also, you can see there's a slight bit of spreading here. They're not parallel. I've seen it much worse than this, where they really like open up. What you want to do is take a really thin pin. The thinner the better, so that you can slide it in between these layers and pull out. Look at all that. Pull this out from both of the layers. And maybe even hit it with some air just to make sure everything gets out of there. And also wipe this down so it doesn't have oil on it, because the oil is going to attract lint. Any lint that's there, if there's oil present, it's going to get stuck in that oil. It's going to build up and it's going to harden as it gets impacted. So clean that completely out. Alright. Clean off all the parts. To get off all oils. Okay. We'll deal with this one in a minute. This blade actually feels pretty good. We're going to put it back in. Not feeling any problems with it. However, I do know this person uses their machine a lot. So I'm going to change my mind here, and I'm going to get one of these. There's the blade. Here's how they come. Now you probably have to be a certified Bernina technician to get these. I'm not sure if you can get them outside of being a certified technician at a dealership, but they're on this strip, and really you only want this part, but they're manufactured on this whole arm. So basically you just come to the break in it and just break that piece off. I mean, you could use this, save it. There's got a nice sharp edge there. You could use this for all kinds of utility purposes. Okay, so we're going to put this in, and when you insert this, you want to make sure that this hook here part, this finger, is pointed toward the rear of the machine. So don't put it in this way. Okay, you want these pieces that stick out a little bit to ride in this track underneath. Okay, not going to work if you put it the other way. It won't be activated correctly, and it will jam up. So then take your new blade, and put it in there. Make sure the blade is nice and flush to the edge of the casting here in this module. A piece of lint in here. We'll get it all out. Alright, so this should move nice and smoothly. It should look like that. Now, this is the top plate. This, if you try it both ways, you'll see it'll only line up one way. Plus, you'll probably see some movement marks on the plate. It'll make it obvious. This bump here goes downward. So you just line up the holes. There's only one way it can really go together. Get them all in before tightening anything up. Just pretty much standard with anything. If it's got more than one screw, get them all in first before you start tightening things so that everything is lined up correctly. And then, once these four have been snugged up, you have to crazy tighten them, just snug them up. We'll move on to the second half of this. Now basically the important parts, you got to make sure these springs, these tiny springs here, need to be in place. If not, they need to be replaced. Also, you want to make sure that this opening here, that hole in this U-shaped piece, that this U-shaped piece doesn't overlap onto the hole, that it fits nicely in there. That this piece that moves right here, that's spring loaded, that fits snugly into this shape, and that little hook goes up against that piece in here. See that? Fits nice and neatly into there and moves okay. Careful not to pop those springs out. The other thing to check for is if any of these arms are bent, and needle strikes. You get a lot of needle strikes right along here on this edge. A lot of times you can just buff them out using a Dremel and a rubber polishing wheel, and buff those out nice and smooth. That can help as long as you run your all right. As long as you run your fingernail across that and it's smooth, the thread won't get caught on it and you'll be good. Otherwise, replace this part and you'll have to realign this part when you put it on this plate. But I've replaced this plate quite a few times when the damage was just too much or it was bent in some way. Yeah, so this is just a general servicing on this. Nothing was really wrong with this, except for I swapped the blade out. So it's pretty good. Now to insert these together, you have to turn them upside down, and you'll notice there are two plates here. You've got this kind of plate that has the bend in it, and then you've got this long straight plate. You want to see how the hooks here goes this direction. This hook will match it. You see how it's in the same direction? So turn them over together and tuck this point here underneath the second plate, like that. It has to be under the second plate. If you put it here and go like this, it's not going to run right. It has to be under the second one. And just, you see this finger here? Just line it up flat like this. When you turn it over, it's going to look like this. And then you can fit it into your machine. That's a totally other video. Just realize that this little pin here has to go in first. And it has to pop down into the hole first before anything, in the hole in the frame, and then everything will seat itself correctly. So that's a different video. I'll deal with that issue later. This is specifically just dealing with this. Alright, so if you have any questions, definitely put them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer any questions that I have. This is the cutter assembly for a Bernina 7 series, 5 series, etc. Alright, until next time.